we feature two guest speakers to share information and resources with the region. Each speaker will give a 20-minute presentation and we will open breakout rooms where you can join the participants and more intimate questions and answer session. The breakout room will automatically close in 20 minutes. Our first speaker is Ariana Zarentenello. Let me get this right. I'm sorry. Zarentenello of YMCA Metropolitan Chicago. Ariana is a first-generation Latin with a Bachelor's of Science in Sociology and double minor Psychology and Spanish from Illinois State University. Her background includes crisis intervention with comprehensive community-based youth services, assisting the elderly with food, safety, and home care aid. While living in Texas, Ariana provides mental health services to adults with mental illness. Ariana now works as a bilingual case manager at YWC Metropolitan Chicago, where she is able to work with clients in the Latinx community to overcome communication barriers and facilitate positive community collaborations. Our next speaker is Brianna Van Bogart. Brianna is an LPC and is the program supervisor for the Children Advocacy Center for Laura Vita Children's Hospital. We will now start with the first speaker. Ms. Ariana can begin to present.
Good morning, everybody. I was late to the meeting.
That's okay. We're just getting started with the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for that introduction. My name is Ariana Zarentenello. Let me share my screen. Okay, perfect. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So welcome and thank you for hosting this event, Kimberly, and I'm grateful to be here and share the program with you. Pain and Strain Against Community Violence. So YWCA Metropolitan Chicago presents Community Violence Support Services, also known as CVSS. There you go. So today I'll be talking about what people already know about YWCA Metropolitan Chicago and also introducing community violence support services, such as the Language Access Plan, community engagement, how to be referred to CVSS, and our case management services. Community violence support. So YWCA, many of you guys know, we have sexual assault violence support services. We also do economic empowerment. We have many different programs through the YWCA. This one, Community Violence Support Services, was actually funded by OVC, the Office of Victims' Crimes, back in 2020 before COVID hit. So we're starting to do outreach within the community. So YWCA Metropolitan Chicago continues its mission to empower the community and eliminate racism through our CVSS program. So our mission is to offer high quality counseling and case management services to the Spanish speaking residents in the Bremen Township community, ages 17 and older. CVSS service areas and office locations. So the service areas that we provide are Bremen Township, such as Oak Forest, Blue Island, Harvey, Midlothian, Hazelcrest, Robbins, Posen, Homewood, Tinley Park, Markham, Crestwood, Country Club Hills. And We do have many different locations, but the locations that I will be working directly out of is our South Suburban Center in Chicago Heights, which is located at 320 West 202nd Street in Chicago Heights, and then also our recent location that is in Roseland, and that address is 839 West 115th Street in Chicago. I can also put this in the chat for you guys later. So why do we service the Bremen Township area? So Bremen Township holds a population of 40,612. So the village of Posen and the city of Blue Island hold a high percentage household members who are 14 years of age and older, who have at least some difficulty with English. So the isolation due to communication in English, and due to their experience with negative community policing, such as deportation, immigration, and status, which causes some fear to kind of reach out to people who they don't feel comfortable. And especially in the Latin community, they feel most comfortable with those who speak their language as well. And also mental health, the lack of support, emotional issues such as depression and anxiety. Usually many Hispanics believe that mental illness does not exist. So that can also be one of the causes why. Our community engagements involving cultural institutions, house of worship, civic and community organizations, and community partners. We do, within the Hispanic community, they like to go be out in the open where they're most comfortable, such as, the Hispanic markets, Hispanic churches. So what I do is reach out to those communities and to try to, provide them with resources and some information. Our CVSS community partners include Legal Aid Chicago, which they provide civil legal services in the Cook County area. They fight for people living in poverty while securing economic stability, affordable housing, personal safety, fair working conditions, and basic health care. The South Suburban Family Shelter provides comprehensive coordination services to families who are services of domestic violence, offers 24-hour hotline and shelter for survivors, counseling, court advocacy, and also free of charge for English and Spanish. We work with these communities because community violence support services doesn't just offer for sexual assault. We also do domestic violence, burglaries, robberies, homicides, things of that nature. So community violence, we are using our language access plan, also known as LAP. So our interaction with the staff, the clients will gain one-on-one interactions through in-person, remote, and they'll receive translations. The ability to access services and express their rights as victims with their bilingual staff. Program brochures and paper work will be available in Spanish, including notice of services, things that are out there and that clients don't know anything about because they're unable to read English. The training, our staff will be receiving training on a quarterly basis to help the clients and survivors. Evaluations, clients will complete quarterly satisfaction surveys in Spanish to assess the service quality, timeliness of response, and completion of services. So the question is, how do I receive services? If you have a client who is in need of services, they can go through the Chicago Rape Crisis 24-hour hotline and our intake line. They can also go to our sites for online walk-in and schedule appointments there, and also through our service providers. At the end of this presentation, I will provide my information, which you can also refer to me directly, and I can respond to the clients. So our case management services include the things that we will be doing is a comprehensive individual assessment, which is emotional, physical, and mental status assessment, just to see how the clients are doing in the moment Then we develop a care plan, which is a personalized care plan for victims and their children to make sure that they're getting their safety. Resource information and referrals is identifying services based on the survivor's preferences. So that can include food, housing, legal services, shelters, things of that nature. The implementation of the care plan, we put the care plan in action, helping with paperwork and applications that they need assistance with. So they're not doing it alone. Follow-up to communicate to learn the victim's progress and the needs to be provided. Supportive counseling, providing support and words of wisdom and encouragement on their growth. So not only do we have case management, we also do have counseling services, which are provided by a bilingual counselor. Prospective partners in YWCA. By collaborating with the YWCA, together we'll provide training and accepting referrals to help develop language, access, identity, service gaps, improve coordination of services, all related services for survivors in the Latinx community. So we're building a network and effort to help our own community. Currently, YWCA is doing food distribution, and I have partnered with the Salvation Army, both in Blue Island and in Roseland at the Kroc Center, to provide information for survivors and provide the food that they need, especially during this time during COVID. Here is an example of our flyers where I have been posting out throughout the Bremen Township community. And so that concludes my presentation. But one thing that I do want from the author of Singer Jr. By his book, The Distinguishing of America, reflect on a multicultural society. He said that the American identity will never be fixed and final. It will always be in the making. And is there any questions? And here's my contact information, where if you reach out, I can provide you with more information and flyers in our resource checklist, which we will be doing for our clients to gain the service that they need that we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ariana, for your presentation. We will now go to our next presenter, Ms. Brianna Vanden Bogart.
Good morning, everyone. Give me 1 second to pull up my presentation. All right, so thank you guys so much for having me. Like she said, I'm Brianna Vanden Bogart. I work at La Rabida Children's Advocacy Center. We're located in Park Forest, Illinois, and I am the program supervisor there. So I was asked to just explain a little bit about who we are and what we do, the services that we provide, and then I'm also going to talk a little bit about some statistics and how to respond in cases of child abuse. Okay. All right. So approximately 1 in 3 females and 1 in 7 males are sexually abused by the age of 18, and nearly 88% of sexual abuse is never reported. So most kids never tell. And so if a child is telling you that they've been abused, it's really important on how to respond. So over 90% of child victims are sexually abused by someone that they know and trust. And I think that's a really powerful statistic. As much as half of all child sexual abuse is committed by children under the age of 18. So I know that we might have some school providers here as well. And I think this is important because a lot of times things get reported in schools, and how schools respond can impact, the way that the child wants to participate in future investigations. It can also impact the criminal investigation. And so we're going to get into some of that as well. So I think in order for everyone to understand what CACs are, I think it's important to understand what happened prior to CACs existing. So before CACs, children advocacy centers, what would happen is when a child would make a disclosure of abuse, they would be interviewed multiple times, up to 15 times by different people. So I'll just give you an example. If Susie made a disclosure to her teacher, Miss Smith, at school that dad was touching her inappropriately, she'd obviously have to talk to the teacher about it. She might have to talk to a social worker about it, maybe the principal. Then they call DCFS. They have an emergency person respond from DCFS, then the regular DCFS investigator, then a responding officer, a detective, maybe a detective sergeant, state's attorneys, medical providers. And so you can see that by that child having to retell their story up to 15 times, that's obviously re-traumatizing for that child to live through those graphic details over and over again. Also, the people who were questioning the child were not trained in memory recall, suggestibility, trauma, and so they would oftentimes ask leading questions. Also, the information that the child provided could be changing. So as we all know, not one person can tell the exact same story the exact same way each time. Depending on who's asking questions, how they're asking questions, and what types of questions are being asked, the information that the child is providing or was providing was probably changing a little bit, which obviously posed issues for prosecution because it looked like the child wasn't being credible when really it wasn't the credibility of the child that should have been called into question. It was really the process that this kid was having to go through. So now we have the Children's Advocacy Center, and we are one of 5 children's advocacy centers in Cook County. We service District 6 of Cook County. And so all of the children's advocacy centers in Cook County have to follow the Cook County protocol, which is mandated by law, and it dictates how professionals are supposed to respond and not respond in allegations of abuse. And so the protocol really focuses on children between the ages of 3 to 17, and it covers sexual abuse, physical abuse, and child witnesses to violent crimes such as homicide, domestic violence, things of that nature. We also do provide forensic interviews for adults with disabilities as well. So per the Cook County protocol, forensic interviewers are the only people allowed to interview the children to prevent the re-traumatization and the issues that I just discussed, issues for prosecution, re-traumatization, all of that. So even law enforcement officers should avoid talking to the victim and obtain their information from the outcry witness. And the outcry witness is an individual that the child first made the disclosure to. So in my previous example, if Susie went to tell Miss Smith that dad was touching her inappropriately, Miss Smith would be that outcry witness. And the outcry witness is really the person that needs to be making the DCFS hotline and also calling the police outside of the presence of the child. So La Rabida specifically, these are the services that we provide. We really work to eliminate the issues that I discussed. And so the CAC is a child-friendly environment where children are interviewed ideally one time regarding allegations of abuse, and then they receive supportive services to stabilize and heal from the abuse that they went through. So we bring investigators from police, DCFS, and state's attorney's office together to watch the forensic interview. Prior to COVID, they would come in person and they would watch behind a one-way mirror. So it would be the child and the interviewer in one room and then the team on the other side of the mirror. Now, during COVID, we've been doing teleforensic interviews, meaning we've had the child in one room, the interviewer in a separate room. They've Zoomed back and forth, and then we've had our team actually Zoom in remotely, so that way we could just be mindful of COVID. Starting July 1, we'll be starting all services back in person. So the child is interviewed by the forensic interviewer who is trained in memory recall, child development, trauma, and then also asking open-ended questions. And we provide support and follow-up services to the children and families, including linking them to specialized medical exams. So we send all of our children to Advocate Christ in Oak Lawn for those specialized exams. And then we also provide trauma therapy. So La Rabida Children's Hospital has the behavioral health division, and in the behavioral health division, La Rabida is there, and then also CCTC, Chicago Child Trauma Center. And so they have trauma therapists who will actually come on site to the Park Forest location and provide those trauma therapy services. And then we also provide ongoing advocacy throughout the investigation and court process. So we have family advocates who are regularly following up with those families, making sure that they're connected to different services that they need, and just trying to make the response to the child abuse as cohesive as possible. And so we can answer questions that the parents have, because it's a difficult time navigating the different systems. The only people that can actually request forensic interviews are DCFS and law enforcement. And so that's why I'm really going to focus on when a child makes a disclosure, what to do after that to get DCFS and police involved, so that way we can get involved as well. And then all of our services are free of charge to investigators, children, and families. So here are some warning signs. I'm not going to read them out loud, but you guys can take a look. Please be mindful that these are signs that have been correlated with child abuse in the past. They're not an all-inclusive list of warning signs. And just because these things are happening doesn't mean that the child is being sexually or physically abused, but it's just a good time to check in with that child if you see some of these things happening. I want to talk a little bit about dynamics of abuse in the disclosure process. So most children don't disclose, and of those children that do disclose, only about a third of kids will disclose immediately. And from those studies, only about a quarter of kids disclose within childhood. Research shows that even when there's substantiated evidence, such as confessions from an alleged offender, or there's video recording or witnesses of abuse, up to 43% of children deny the incident occurring. So I think that's pretty powerful, that even when we know something happened, they still tend to deny that anything occurred. So the majority of children take weeks and months and years to disclose. And so a lot of disclosure is delayed versus immediate. Next, we have accidental versus purposeful disclosures. So accidental, I think of as, one example is a child writes in her journal that she's being abused, say by her brother. Mom comes into her room, picks up the journal, and reads about the abuse. And so that child didn't mean for that disclosure to get out. It was an accident that mom stumbled upon it. Versus purposeful, if in the previous example that I gave a few slides back with Susie telling the teacher, that would be purposeful, because she meant to tell the teacher that abuse is occurring. So the next thing is there's differences in disclosure, and I think differences in disclosure at the outcry. So when the child initially tells somebody about the abuse versus what happens during the forensic interview, and then even down the road during therapy. And I think disclosure is really a process, and the kid may be trying to see how the person who initially gets told about the abuse responds to that abuse. And then also they might be seeing if the alleged offender finds out that they told, what's going to happen with that. And then also I think it's important just to remember that this is a kid. So they're testing the disclosure. And so I've had plenty of law enforcement, DCFS investigators, and then also parents ask, well, why did she say that only one thing happened? And now she comes into this forensic interview and she's saying that extensive abuse happened, for years and years. And it's because, disclosure is a process, and she was trying to test that disclosure and see how people would respond and react. And then there might be inconsistencies. More likely, it's due to reluctance or trauma or memory limitations rather than false allegations. It's estimated that only between 4 to 8% of child sexual abuse reports are fabricated, and most of those cases are like custody disputes, or those allegations might be by adolescents. So research shows that up to 23% of children recanted in 257 substantiated cases of abuse. And I think this is important to know too, because recantation is a common factor during child sexual abuse, and it doesn't mean that the abuse didn't happen. I think this is important just to know that, abuse and the disclosure process is really impacting a bunch of different facets, and it's a criminal justice process. A criminal justice problem because the offender can be arrested and prosecuted. Child protection problem because we want to make sure the abuse is not going to continue. It's a medical problem because that child might need medical care, like that specialized medical exam I was talking about before. It's a mental health problem because the children that disclose abuse or are being abused are at a higher risk to develop mental health problems. It's also a school problem too. And so I think especially for the people who are involved in school systems, I think just knowing that the kids are showing up to school every day, that school system might be their only support system. And more than half of disclosures are made to school professionals. So I have a feeling if we're here, you guys are probably mandated reporters. And so just making sure to report any physical, sexual abuse, human trafficking, neglect, domestic violence, medical neglect, anything that, a child is being abused. And I think too, sometimes we get questions about like, well, what classifies as sexual contact or what classifies as sexual abuse? And I think if a child is saying, he touched me inappropriately, she made me do sexual things, touched my private parts, raped me, like all of those questions or all of those things are reportable, and you don't have to get into detail about the specific incidents that those kids are reporting. And so this is just some of the things that when you make the hotline call, they'll be asking you. Right now, DCFS, obviously, I don't know if you guys have all made reports, but DCFS, you can report online by creating a profile on the DCFS site. But I would say if it's an emergency, obviously don't do that. You want to make the phone call and you want to make sure to say it's action needed and it's an emergency. So that way they bump your call to the top of the list. And then following the call, you'll have to make a CANTS 5 and you'll send that to the local DCFS office, which is our Harvey office. I think too, something that's important to say is if you make the hotline call and the person who is taking the call doesn't take it for an investigation and you really think it is something that needs to be investigated, you can always ask to speak to a supervisor too. I've done that many times, and I would say half the time they say, nope, we're not going to take it. And half the time they say, yeah, you know what, you're right, this should be taken. So don't be afraid to do that. And then if you are the person who made the hotline call, then you'll get notification of how the investigation turned out, if it was indicated or unfounded, and you can always appeal that as well. So what should you do when a child discloses? So it's really important that when a child discloses that you treat yourself as the first trusting adult that child is telling, because you really don't know if they told anyone else. And so the reaction that you have can affect the child's comfort level in disclosing. And so just be mindful of your facial expressions and your body language and don't act shocked. You're really setting the stage for how the child and family decide to proceed with the investigation. And then also, you're also helping that child just share the information that they have. And so it's not your responsibility to determine if something is truthful. Just to report it is what your responsibility is. And don't destroy any documents created by the child about the alleged abuse. Those should all be turned over to law enforcement as evidence. And then don't have children write their statements out. So we have some schools who are having their children write statements, and that can be really re-traumatizing for the kid, and trauma narrative should be done in trauma therapy by a trained professional for that. Don't offer the child rewards for disclosure. It's okay to praise the child for being strong and for their courage of telling, but just don't offer rewards or incentives because that can impact the case later on down the road too. Let me see. And then we can get more into that too in the breakout sessions if you guys want more examples of that. But This is just an example of how something like this could go. So the student, something bad happened to me. Tell me about what happened. I got touched on my private parts. Who did that to you? My uncle. What's your uncle's name? Does he live with you or someplace else? Do you know where he lives? When is the last time that it happened? Does anyone else know about what happened? Do you feel safe to go home today after school? Will he be there? Or after, wherever they are. And I think this is an important example because the person who's responding to that child is not responding to ask more about the actual, I got touched on my private parts. They're not asking more about that incident, but they are trying to gather information to make that hotline call. They're thinking about if that child's going to go back into that situation after they return home. And I think too, something that I might add is, does your uncle have children of his own? And that's because maybe the uncle is not in a caretaker role for this child, so maybe DCFS wouldn't take it. But if that uncle is in contact with other kids or has other kids living with him, they'll take the report based on the uncle being a risk to those other kids. You just want to gather information to make that call. And then something that, you can say as an example to say back to the kid after they disclosed, I'm really glad you told me about what happened. I'm sure that was very hard to do. You're brave for telling me. I'm going to do everything I can to help you be safe. But in order to do that, I have to let other people know about what you told me. And I think it's important to say, I'm going to do everything I can to help you be safe, but you never ever want to promise that that kid is going to be safe, because a lot of the times they're going to have to go back into that same situation. And so you don't want to make it seem like you lied to the kid, because you can't ensure that they're going to be safe after they disclose. So how can the CAC help? We can provide case consultation to providers. And so if you have a case where a child disclosed, getting law enforcement and DCFS involved is going to be really important. And if we have law enforcement and DCFS on here, then you guys can always definitely reach out, and we can help you walk through certain things with the case. Referrals for services. So we provide the family, like I said, with different referrals and resources to heal from the abuse. So if you guys are in the community and you guys need connection, let us know and give us a call. And then we can also provide different trainings and information. So we've done trainings for schools, police officers, DCFS, community providers. And so we can gear your training more towards whatever audience that we have. And at the bottom is my contact number at the Children's Advocacy Center. And then also in the chat, I'll provide my email too. So if you guys have any questions, you can obviously reach out to me, and then in the breakout session too. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Brianna, for the presentation. At this time, we are going to go into our breakout rooms. As I previously discussed, in the breakout rooms, we'll be able to discuss in more detail, or if you have any conversations that you would like to partake in with either one of the presenters. So you would have to make the choice of either going with Ariana or Brianna into the breakout rooms. Kelsey, are you going to put up something where they can make choices?
Kimberly, I think, just opened it. Okay. So you all should be able to see and go to Ariana if you want to talk to her some more, or Brianna if you want to go to her breakout room.
I have a question. Do everyone have to go to a breakout room?
Yes, we want everybody to go so they can have an opportunity to get some more information. So, and if you want to go to both, I can move you halfway through.
And the number one, or spells out one. How does it work? Can you tell them it doesn't work? It doesn't work.
Hey, Kelsey, I'm sorry. I'm normally broken. I've never broken out into a room this way.
Okay.
So I clicked on Ariana's name.
Uh-huh.
Do I just click leave? I was afraid if I clicked leave, I would leave the actual
No,
zone.
it should let you, and if it doesn't work, I can like physically move you to it.
Okay. Could you physically move me?
Yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem.
That doesn't work either. Four, five.
Suzette, do you have a room you want me to put you in?
I'm not, you can put me in whatever room. It's fine.
Okay.
Hey, Kelsey, this is Suzette, and I don't know what happened to my screen, but I can't get into any of the chats, and I want to be in the with the chat with Brianna. I want to be in the breakout session with Brianna.
Okay, I'll add you right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great job. Great job.
Thank you.
Yes. I did. I put the timer on so you can make sure you go back to 105. No, 140. 140? It said 105. I'll send her a text and ask her. What was the one that was Miss Brittany's Google Meet? No, Google Meet that was open again. So then I can change and tell my room direction. Oh no. There is an exciting afternoon session at 105 with Miss
Uh-huh. Sounds like it.
No, because I go find a charger. And what you can do is get on the leaderboard for Dreambox. No. You know, those that can't teach. So
how are you this morning?
I'm good. We had our executive board meetings this morning, and it was like, so I thought that this is going well. I like Dr. Young as I I have to report my sustainability plan.
Mm-hmm. You ready to hand it off?
I'm not here.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Oh, and did you want me to share the link, like when I do the announcements or something, the link to the live broadcast?
Oh, you know what? Yeah. I was just like, okay, let me see. I don't know if we have any viewers. Oh, girl, we're still recording this.
Oh, so this.
So we are all on YouTube, like, yeah, chit chat. And I looked over because there's a delay. And I'm like, oh, that's not a good side profile look. It is horrible. It's very weird to see like the delay, like, oh, I just did that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it's still so.
Oh, we're still live.
It's still recording it live.
All right.
What we'll need to do in the future is have our own like a background, like a green room or something, so that we can have like a stagnant screen on display for the live podcast. We don't have to have our witty banter being for the world to see.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
But what I'll probably do is take the actual recording, because that was from beginning to end, and just edit it and upload it.
Okay.
I wonder how long do they have? Oh, okay.
Mine says 21 minutes.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be 20.
It should be 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we may have to just manually close the room.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I set it up, the options said 20 minutes. Okay.
I need help with my non-technological self. So Katie, if somebody y'all send me that information, I couldn't get it to save.
No, I got you. I'll resend everybody who sent the emails and everything like that. I'll reach out and CC everybody into it so that way we have everybody's information. If that works out by the end of the day.
That's fine. It's almost the end of the school year. I think my brain is on fumes. Some fumes.
No problem.
Okay, so we got an opportunity to go into the breakout rooms, and I hope everyone was able to get more insight as to the programming that was presented to us today. We will now go to announcements with Kelsey.
Okay, and I will just start by sending everybody the links to the May 2021 folder and the announcements for this month. And you can access the minutes and the announcements and some flyers from that folder. To start, we still have a list of links, including the applications for the steering committee, agency updates, guest speaker forms, and the meeting minutes. And that's all in one document that you can access from the announcements page. The Lions Club International Foundation is accepting applications from schools and community organizations interested in receiving free training, technical support, and materials to implement evidence-based social and emotional learning programs for children pre-K to 12th grade. There are also additional opportunities specifically for community-based organizations to participate in an upcoming study on delivering SEL to youth 12 through 14. You can add announcements to the Google Doc. It might require that I approve them first just so that we don't get a lot of random posting, but you should be able to. And if it doesn't let you, can email me and I'll put my email in the chat. Secondly, Illinois DCFS is still hiring, and there is a flyer in the May folder that has information on the different career paths and virtual employment information sessions that are still ongoing through May. I believe May is the last list of links that I have. The Illinois Housing Department or Development Authority started a new rental assistance program on Monday, May 17th. And it is an emergency rental assistance program designed to support households in Illinois that are unable to pay rent due to COVID. A few details about this application is that it is only online. Applicants are eligible for up to 15 months of assistance, as far back as 12 months and as far forward as 3 months. The grant maximum is $25,000. And there are required documents for both the tenant and the landlord for the application to be eligible. There is an FAQ sheet that I attached, and that one is in English, and I have several other language FAQs that I can send out for anybody who would like those. And for more information, you can also visit the IHDA website, which I have linked in the announcements page. And we would just like to thank our speakers again and ask that if anybody has recommendations for speakers or would like to be a speaker, you can contact myself or Kimberly, or you can fill out a Google form that we have linked, because we love having our presenters and are always happy to hear if anybody has recommendations for agencies or groups that they would like to present at our LAN 53 meetings. And additionally, just to remind everyone, any announcements you have, you can email to me and I will be sure to add them to our monthly page. And that's all I have this month.
I got a question. I'm sorry, but Kelsey, you gonna be here until the end of the end of the year, or because I know school is almost out for you?
Yeah, I will still be here for the summer at least, and hopefully will be approved to work with you all through next year as well. But I haven't signed or I haven't been extended yet, but I am extended for the summer. So I will be here at the next few months meetings at least.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, Dr. Young, for holding the meeting down. Thank you to our presenters. The information was really good. We usually just kind of share a little bit of time toward the end of the meeting, just to open up the mic to see if anybody has any comments or want to offer any reflections on their breakout sessions. We're still piloting this as a new format for the LAN meetings. We've gotten really great feedback on it, and it is absolutely thanks to the wonderful presenters that we've been able to have over the last couple of months. So I want to definitely reiterate our appreciation for you joining us this morning, and just wanted to see if anybody had any additional comments or anything that they would want to share before Dr. Young kind of adjourns the meeting for this morning.
I do. Couple months ago, we invited Lady named Candace from Access Living that were talking about bill costs that said that her team was working on, and I just want to say it made it out of the House of Representatives, and now we are in the Senate part. If you want to know about more information, you could always talk to Kimberly about that because she knows more. Thanks.
Thank you, Kristin. So she's talking about, Kristin is a self-advocate, and she's been working with Access Living, and they've been really working hard to get some updated legislation specifically around increasing resources for responses to mental health calls, specifically around adding some additional resources to the 911 system so that law enforcement is not the first line of defense when there is a mental health call. So they've been working really hard, and I really want to congratulate Kristin. She's been able to testify before the Senate. She's been able to really have a large role in raising awareness for this. And as she mentioned, they were able to get that first hurdle of having the legislation to pass through the House, and now they are currently advocating before the Senate. So I do get the meeting links. They are definitely looking for other agencies and organizations. This movement started specifically with the case in the Calumet City area with a young man by the name of Stephon Watts, who unfortunately did lose his life at the hands of law enforcement who are responding to his family's call for mental health support. So we definitely appreciate Kristin for her bringing her voice to these forums and being such a strong and amazing advocate. And if you guys are interested in attending those future meetings, I can definitely share that link with you all as she makes them available to me.
One thing, we got a meeting, we got a statewide coalition that me and Kim, you still on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We meet every Thursday on Zoom at 5 to 6:30. So we meet tonight on Zoom.
Thank you, Kristin. So I didn't know if anyone else wanted to make any comments, and I can definitely turn it back over to you, Dr. Young. Thank you guys so much.
Right. Kristin, can you put your number in so I could call you after this meeting right quick?
Yeah, my president, Yes. No problem. You want my office or my cell?
Whatever you prefer.
Like I say, me and Kim, are you still coming tonight?
Kristen, we can go over that later. So I can also share the meeting information in the chat.
Okay, once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you to our presenters. They gave us some awesome information. I know that I myself am going to further inquire about for my schools that I represent. If there are not any other questions or comments or announcements, we can move forward in adjourning the meeting at 11:12. Thank you all once again, and I hope to see you at the next meeting.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You'll have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Kim, I got to tell you something before you go.
Okay.